All right, gang. Welcome to episode 11 of Curtis Candy's GOOSHTASTIC podcast. Wow. Man, each time it seems like I use a little bit of a different inflection on that welcome, that opening, that welcome there. Going the sultry route when you look like I do, it doesn't work. And the thing of it is, I know many of you are listening to this as a podcast. Trust me, I look pretty much as ugly as I sound. So just trust me on that. I think we have to kill the sultry thing. This is episode 11. Today we got a couple topics we're going to discuss that are just current events stuff. I want to run by you guys and get your feedback on. And then I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to let you guys take the direction of the podcast. Hold me. I'm scared. But as always, to be a part of the actual, because we record these podcasts as a live stream at our YouTube channel. You are more than welcome to come along and be a part of the podcast recordings. Just search YouTube for Spaz Boys Comedy, and we will pop right up for you. And then you can subscribe there, tick the bell to get notifications. Susan will come along and go, do I want to give you a notification? No. But you have a chance anyway. Maybe, if you're subscribed, you may at least get our notification as a sidebar recommendation or something like that. But we've already got a good sized gang entering into the chat here. Hi gang, thanks for entering me. We will be, if you're new. This is why I have a podcast, because I am such a wordsmith and I'm so smooth with the way the words just flow from my mouth. If you're new to us, you will discover that a lot of what we talk about is real live interaction with the gang here. I think it's a lot more fun that way. I mean, we get to talk. We have people from all over the world that are regulars here on the podcast, so we get some really unique views. We have some people who are just plain unique, myself included, so we get some unique views. But what I want to talk about first today, Bernie Sanders, is he done? You know what? And you guys know how I feel about it. I am not a Bernie bro. I am the absolute antithesis of a Bernie bro. And it's, as I've told you before, it's not even for me personally. It's because I have children and I have grandchildren. And I think his form of socialism brought here to the United States would be a horrible, horrible future for them. A future devoid of exceptionalism. And there is nothing worse than that to me. But all that aside, just from an analytical standpoint, it's one of those cases where, especially in politics, you can never 100% say never. Donald Trump 2016. But it don't look good. Not only does Joe have a 90-some delegate lead at the moment, when we just came out of Super Tuesday, where just a few weeks ago everyone thought Bernie would have a commanding advantage by then. Not only does Biden have the lead, but I believe the biggest prize is Florida. I should know this. I should have looked this up before I started the podcast, but then that would be like being prepared and all that shit. So I can't be bothered. I'm not sure who has more delegates, New York or Florida. I think Florida does. If that's the case, anyway, Florida is the biggest, or one of the two biggest prizes out there. And I think Bernie's going to get annihilated in Florida. I think Biden's going to beat him, and beat him bad. Bernie will have to work hard just to get to that 15% level. Wolverine says, sends his love to my son as we begin here. All the polls and any of the news you get from down in Florida, I think it's going to be a really bad beatdown. And with that many delegates at stake, I don't know how, and already behind, I don't know how Bernie comes back from that. His big state of California is already done. And even with him winning California, he still, again, remain 90-some delegates behind. I think he will get beaten soundly in Missouri. I think the only state he has a real shot at this Tuesday is Washington State, and that's not a given. I think that's going to be really close, and Biden could well eke that one out as well. So after this Tuesday, I think Bernie will stay on. I do believe that Bernie is of the mind right now that he's a Bernie or bust guy. So he's going to stay on regardless of how big a beating he takes. And I do believe in true cranky old man fashion, when he starts taking this beating, he will just go full on into burn it all down mode. That's what I think he's going to do. I'm going to go get some comments on this. Lixbox says, to say Bernie is done implies he ever started in the first place. Well, we have to be fair, though, Lix. I mean, myself included, a few weeks ago, I never thought Bernie was going to get the nomination, but I thought Bernie was going to go into the convention with a delegate lead, and then the superdelegates would take it from him. That's what I thought was going to happen. Now, it may not even come to superdelegates. It's quite possible, the way things are turning right now, Biden could get the, 1900 and however many they need, 1991 or something like that. Biden could reach that threshold. Probably not. Bernie's still got enough support probably to block that, but I think Biden goes in with a commanding lead. And we know if Biden goes to the convention with a lead in delegates, he's getting the nomination. Firewall Dragon says, if Bernie does win in Florida, they'll just recount the votes and he'll lose. Florida's good at that. Well, there'll be hanging chads, Dragon. You always got to worry about those chads. But that's, I tell you though, that's why I think he really, his time is running out, is because I don't think he has any chance in Florida. And I just think it's going to be a severe beatdown in Florida, much worse than it was even in South Carolina. Chrome says, I'm not sure if I agree. Bernie folded to Hillary last election, so I can see him doing it again this election if the DNC gives him enough money or even a few concessions maybe. You know, Chrome, you could be right. The only reason I tend to think not is because what is Bernie now, 78? And he just had a relatively serious cardiac event. I don't think Bernie gives much of a fuck anymore. I think that's what it's down to. And I think he's going to be very bitter and very angry that it's going to be hard to try. Well, they'll try and spin it as some sort of case where the DNC screwed him. Now, don't get me wrong. Given the opportunity, the DNC would absolutely screw Bernie Sanders. As I've said on a number of occasions, I don't know why that surprises anybody. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat, so I don't know why that's surprising. But this is not a case of the DNC screwing him. This is a case of the voters, the Democratic voters, were waiting for the middle-of-the-road candidate to emerge that they could coalesce around, and it happened. Because even in the states that Bernie won early, his support was less than it had been in 2016 against Hillary. It's just that there were more candidates to dilute it all. As soon as they coalesced around one, that was pretty much it. I don't think Bernie hasn't really made any inroads anywhere. It seems that his support is stagnated, and in some cases even recessed a little bit. Firewall Dragon says, how many of Bernie and Biden's votes do you think will be dead people? Wait, I don't know. Do they do that in the primary too, or just the general? No. Let's not even get people going on that, Dragon, because there are people that really believe those are big numbers. The dead people that vote. Yeah, I just and you still have the Bernie bros or the Bernie supporters trying to make the case that he's the one to beat Trump, but I don't know how you make that case when the only significant victory Bernie has is California, and that's going to the Democrat no matter who it is. I mean, let's face it, you could run a mop handle with a D next to its name in California, and it's going to win against Trump. So any state that could be considered a battleground really has a significant battleground, has gone to Biden, and if I'm correct, and he annihilates him in Florida is a huge, obviously, swing state. What makes the Bernie bros think that Bernie would have a better chance than Biden. I don't understand that logic. Um, Brian Holzer says, should Bob Backlund make another run? For those who don't know, Bob Backlund was a wrestling champion for the old, prior to WWE, it was WWWF back in the old days, and Backlund was a champion back then. He was a hell of a collegiate athlete at Minnesota, was it? Someplace in the Midwest, wrestler. And then he did a gimmick that he was kind of a politician type thing. He kind of lost his mind, which once you lose your mind, politics is the direction to go. And Wolverine says Harambe got around 11,000 votes in 2016. That's understandable. That's completely understandable. Harambe had, he was good on some forms of policy. Other places I didn't agree with him as much. Dragging small children back into the forest, I was against that. I do think that he would be really tough on gun control, Harambe, with good cause. Chrome says, definitely bitter, but Bernie has a habit of bowing his head to people, both his opposition and even his own supposed allies. He did bow his head to those black women who screamed at him. Yeah, and again, I'm not poo-pooing that away, Chrome. You could be right. I don't, like I say, I don't think so, because I just don't think, as I said, he gives a fuck enough. But you could be right. That could absolutely be just another case of, hey, Bernie, here's another house, go away. And he might say, cool. Let's see. Joe says, Bernie definitely isn't out yet, Joe Chronic, but I can't see him winning now. Everyone has dropped out. But I think Super Tuesday, that dropped down to me as I was reading it. The Super Tuesday result will make people more likely to vote. Yeah, I agree, Joe. And I think that's what it is. Biden's just got too much momentum at exactly the right time. But as I said, I think that was inevitable whenever the more mainstream candidates had winnowed down to basically one that they could all get behind. And it was Biden. I think you'd be seeing a similar thing had it been, this was never going to happen, but had it been Klobuchar, had it been Pete, I think you'd have seen the same thing, that the a good hunk of the Democrats are going to coalesce around them. Especially, I've said this is the first election that I think has really, really, major election, national election, that has been really, really swayed by social media. Because you had the Bernie bros obnoxious as hell all over social media and distancing themselves from everybody else. Like, yeah, we don't need you. We don't need other Democrats. If you don't align yourself with us right down the line, we want nothing to do with you. And Bernie's at fault for a lot of that himself. He said it himself. It's us against them. And by them, he didn't just mean Republicans. He meant the other Democrats who are not far enough left, who are not socialist enough for him. So that was, I believe, one of the all-time bad political strategies of the last 20 years. Right up there with Hillary not campaigning in the Midwest. Firewall Dragon says, maybe Kane will be president one day. He's already a mayor. Why not take it to the next level? Glenn Jacobs, the man who played the wrestler Kane, and as Firewall Dragon alluded to, he's actually a mayor now. He's actually a really bright guy. He's a very sharp guy. I don't know a ton about his politics, but he is a very bright dude. You don't necessarily expect that with Hell in a Cell matches and whatnot in your background, but he is. He's really sharp. This is Kyle says people don't want to vote for a commie. Kyle, that'll get the Bernie bros worked up. What amazes me though is when they'll constantly say Bernie's not a socialist. Didn't Bernie say in no uncertain terms he is a socialist? But I know they like to add another. They like to call it a social democrat or democratic socialist because that's a difference. Like, saying that isn't just your way of getting your foot in the door to socialism. Joe Chronic says, I don't think Biden is fit to lead, though. At least Trump knows the basics of what he's doing. Well, and I'm right up front in that with this Democratic field, I will be voting for Trump. But I wouldn't go so far as to say Trump always knows what he's doing. Unfortunately, I wish I could say that. Biden Biden, I think, is a lot more politically savvy than Trump. But I'm torn on, I mean, you have a lot of people out there saying that Biden is in early stage dementia and things of that nature, but I don't know that to be the case. Biden has been a gaffe machine his entire career. This is nothing new for him to be misspeaking, for him to be saying and doing things that are socially awkward is not new, unfortunately. I don't hate Joe Biden. It's similar to how I felt about President Obama. Now, I didn't agree with a lot of his policy, but I never hated the guy. I think he was a good guy doing the best that he could, or doing what he thought was best. I just didn't always agree with him on what was actually best. And Biden fits into that category for me. I think he's a good guy who sees things differently than do I. That's not the same for me with how I feel about Bernie. And that's the big difference. Gerald Thomas, this is Tui. Oh, okay. By Tui, he means he used to be under another screen name. What are your thoughts on gun control? I'm very pro Second Amendment. And we'll get to that. Gerald, we'll get to that. Remind me about that later, because once we get through the two main topics of the day, this and just the COVID updates, I'm going to let this go wherever you guys want. But to touch on it, I'll say I'm very pro Second Amendment. I do not have issue with some legislation regarding guns. My big concern there is I do think that a lot of that legislation, when it is proposed, it's not proposed as standalone in the minds of some on the left who propose it. It's to get a foot in the door so that they can enact more. Because my concern is when you give a little, and then, as we know the case to be, people still commit crimes with guns, then they'll say, well, that wasn't far enough. Now this is what we're going to do. But I'm very pro Second Amendment. But again, if it's just exists in a vacuum, these, for lack of a better term, common sense gun laws, I'm not necessarily against all of those. Vortex says, who's pushing Biden, though? Who's excited about Biden? I don't know, Vortex, how excited people are. I think they are excited about the prospect of defeating Trump more than they are about Biden, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Biden is a strong, safe choice, and I think he has a real legitimate chance to beat Donald Trump. I think that's a close one. That's a real close matchup, Biden versus Trump. So I don't think it's excitement about him as an individual. I think it's excitement about him and what he represents for the possibility of defeating Donald Trump. Mozmaker says Biden sure as hell has some form of dementia. Well, see, I refuse to say anything like that in a public forum when I don't know that to be the case. Again, does he do things that would sometimes make one believe that? Sure. But when you look at his history, it's not that far out of character for him. Arthur says Trump lacks intelligence but has good instincts. I don't think that's entirely untrue. Yeah. And you know what it is with Trump? I think it's even more than the lack of intelligence. It's just the absolute runaway ego. Now, to get to that level in the business world or as a politician, to become president of the United States, which is basically the leader of the free world, I think you have to have some level of arrogance to you. I think it's unavoidable. But Trump is just completely over the top. And his ego drives everything. He doesn't know how to put it in his place. So maybe that's a lack of intelligence. I don't know. But I think it's more about ego than anything else. But he has had some good instincts. I will give him that. Excuse me. Excuse me. And trust me, we're going to be talking about coronavirus. That cough was not indicative of me actually having it. I'm not talking, from first person experience here. But yeah, I think some of his instincts are good. Mr. X says we need to vote Thanos for president. He'll snap our problems out of existence. and Spaz Kid, this is for those of you listening on the podcast. This is my son. He's called Spaz Kid because the channel has been Spaz Boys Comedy forever. I'm Curtis, the Spaz Gamer. Obviously, my son would be Spaz Kid. But Spaz Kid says, put on the gauntlet and just snap all the people with corona. You guys are just brutal. It's just like, hey, let's see, you got coronavirus. Well, we could sit around and wait and hope for a vaccine, or, you know, hey, expeditious. You got to be expeditious. I get that. Ryan says, ever watch The Newsroom? If not, you'd love it. No, I'm not even sure what that is, Ryan. I don't know what that is. Excuse me. Sport Gaming 2020 says, I remember when Obama was president, a lot of ignorant Republicans mocked him and called him the Antichrist and said he was going to bring World War III. It's just so funny now in 2020. Yeah, and you're right. And I'm somebody who leans right, and that used to really disgust me, just the way they treated him. Because again, the guy doesn't align with me ideologically an awful lot, but he certainly never did anything to inspire any type of vitriol in me or anything. I think, he was doing what he thought was best. I just didn't happen to agree. As a person, this is where it's different from Trump. As a person, I really liked him. I thought he was a good dude. I liked that he had a sense of humor about himself. I liked the way he comported himself. I mean, doing things like, if you guys haven't seen it, if you have never seen the Between Two Ferns episode, Zach Galifianakis's internet show, if you've never seen the Between Two Ferns with President Obama, look it up. It was really, really funny, and I just like that about him. Let's see. Joe Chronic says, Biden doesn't have dementia, but he has cognitive decline early. If you watch him versus Paul Ryan in 2012, he was much more fluid and articulate. I think it's like 20% of people of his age have the same. Yeah, I think that could be more the case. Again, I refuse to actually like try and diagnose someone that I don't know in a public forum. But is it out of the realm of reason to say that someone at his age might be slipping a bit, which is basically what Joe is alluding to? No, that wouldn't be unreasonable at all. So yeah, that's why if Biden does indeed get the nomination, I think it's going to be the most important VP pick probably in my lifetime. Of any that I can remember. Yeah, it's going to be huge, because there are concerns. If not even with the way he was acting, just his advanced years. I mean, the vice presidential pick is going to be monstrously big. Chrome leading to that, Chrome says, so who do you think will be Biden's running mate at this point? You think he may go with someone like Warren, given how long she lasted in the race? You know what, Chrome? I've thought about this. As far as a good guess, I just don't have one. Now, as far as, again, I'm not voting for Biden, but if I try and put myself in the shoes of someone who would be supporting him, I think his best bet is Elizabeth Warren. I know that Kamala Harris is the leader as far as the odds makers. She's got I believe, a serious likability issue. And I don't think her past as a top cop in California are going to serve anybody well. I think that's largely why she was out so early in the Democratic primaries. And the reason I think Warren would be his best interest is because Warren will attract those much more liberal voters without putting off people, being off-putting to people in the way that Bernie is, because she's not as extreme. So I think Elizabeth Warren is the strongest VP pick he could make. I'm hoping he doesn't do that, because I'm voting for the other guy, and I think she would help him a lot. Let's see. Trump is probably going to win, Henderflick says, because statistics show presidents are more likely to win the second term, so Trump is probably going to win. Yeah, he's got, definitely, Henderflick, he's got the incumbent advantage. And as we were just talking, I think a lot of it, particularly if it's Biden, not so much if it's Sanders. If it's Biden, I think the VP is huge. Sanders' VP will be important too, for a lot of the same reasons. He's an older guy. You don't know what's going to happen. He's had health issues. But with Sanders, with Biden, it's just, okay, we're voting for this guy because we think he can beat Trump. With Sanders, if he got in, it's because people want a radical change. So that's why I don't think the VP is as important, because they're going to be looking at him policy wise. Whereas with Biden, we all know where he stands policy wise. It's just a case of can he beat Trump. Like Zoinks Gaming says, Warren is anti-Wall Street, and he's a Wall Street politician. Don't think he will pick her. That's a good point. That's a very good point. It would depend on if he's, and you're not wrong, Zoinks. So it would depend on if, it'd be a tip the scale thing. Is he willing to put his Wall Street connections aside in the hopes that she will bring him more votes? Because I do think she would. See, in other words, the people that I think Warren would attract are not people he's going to flip from anywhere. They're people that might otherwise stay home. That's the way I see it. I think Warren will motivate some more of the more extreme liberals out there to get out and vote, the ones who are not energized by Joe Biden. Let's see. Mozmaker says Trump's approval numbers have been steadily climbing due to his more votes in several states than all the Democrats combined, and the current Democratic nominees are complete shit. From Mozmaker. Yeah, his poll numbers have been steadily rising. They've leveled off a little bit over the last. I'm a numbers geek on polls and stuff. They've leveled off a little bit, but yeah, they had been climbing steadily. And really surprising, I can't remember which states it was, but some of these Super Tuesday states, several of them, more Republicans showed up to vote in total than did Democrats, which is shocking only because you had a hyper-competitive Democratic race and there's no competition on the Republican side. People were just showing up for the sake of showing up because Trump was winning. He was getting 91, 94, 95% of the vote. It wasn't, there was never a question of who was going to win. So for Republicans to have had more votes cast in any of those Super Tuesday states, if I was a Democrat, I'd be very, very concerned about that. Let's see. Arthur says, as a trader myself, I don't disagree with their call to tax Wall Street speculation, but only for high-income earners, one of the few wealth-based taxes I support. Yeah, you're right, Arthur. It's a tread lightly situation no matter how you do it. Now, one thing I will align myself with the Democrats on is the last round of tax breaks were way, way, way too top-heavy. Way too top-heavy. I am someone who believes in the concept of trickle-down economics, but I've always said I liken it because I'm a fat guy. I'm a fat boy, so I liken it to a cinnamon roll. You get that nice warm cinnamon roll, you gotta have some frosting on top. I mean, what the hell? You need that extra sugar. So if you put a nice glaze of frosting on there, it just melts down into the cinnamon roll nicely. If you were to just keep piling frosting on top, the initial warmth of the roll is going to melt the same amount it was going to, and then the other stuff on top is just going to sit there for whoever wants to take it to go ahead and grab it. And that's what they're doing now. They piled the frosting too high. You will get sweetness analogies when you listen to this podcast. The synonym roll. Yeah, pretty much, Big Green. I don't know what that word was. Every once in a while, words come through my lips that just I don't know what they are. I don't know what they mean. I don't know where they came from. Lixbox says as opposed to an acronym roll. Let's see. Trickle down works if you can remove greed from the equation. Yeah, like so or at least control greed. We'll never remove it. Well, and conceptually, you would think it would work because, again, trickle down benefits employers more if they do trickle some of it down because it makes their businesses run better and more efficiently. But again, if you've made it too top heavy, there's no longer any impetus to do that. It's just like, oh, thanks for the extra money. I'm going to put that in my pocket. So again, this is another one of the reasons why I say technically I'm an independent, because so many, and I'm also an independent, but so many of my views, depending on the individual topic, can go right or left. I just lean right now because I don't like the way the left seems to be moving to the extremes. But as far as things like that, yes, I completely agree with the Democrats, with the people on the left side. That last round of tax breaks was way, way, way too fucking top heavy. Bad. Um, Henderflick says Pete Buttigieg should run next term because Trump appeals to a bigger demographic than him, and that demographic won't support Pete. I feel him winning would make history of the first gay president. I like Pete Buttigieg. I really do. Again, in a similar vein that I liked Barack Obama, in that ideologically we have a lot of differences, but it's somebody else who I think is a good guy. The big knock against him was he was arrogant and condescending, and I never got that. And you guys know, you guys who are here and watch anime with me know, typically that's the type of thing that really I find distasteful. You know how many characters I've completely been dismissive of because of their smarmy or arrogant attitudes, but I never got that from Pete. In the debates, people were saying, well, he just thinks he's the smartest one out there. Well, he should think that, because to me, he clearly was the smartest one out there. That's not arrogance. That to me is just facts. Unfortunately. Let's see. Pete would have to fix his issues with African Americans. Absolutely, like Zoinks. People of color are not big Pete supporters. No, you're right. And he's got time to do it. He's a young man. You know, he's going to stay in the public eye. I think if Biden wins, I think Pete's going to get a spot in his cabinet somewhere. And Pete needs to work on that reputation and needs to work on that perception of him. Let's see. Chrome says, greed is human nature. Trying to remove it from the equation is silly. Use greed to your advantage and understand it. Don't try and stop it. People will just work around it. Yeah, to a degree, that's true. But it's up to us, too, to sometimes present situations where greed actually isn't necessarily going to bring you the most positive results. Siren says, hey Curtis, I made a business inquiry to you on Discord, but I can't really contact you there. I don't get over to Discord very much at all. You got a business email or anything? I do not. I've never really set up a business email just because because who wanted to do business with me? No, just because I don't really do any external business that goes hand in hand with the channel or anything. The best way to approach me, for those of you who aren't part of the Patreon, because the Patreon is where it's a very tight little community, and I check the private messages there religiously. The best thing outside of that would be you can hit me up on Twitter, because I check my Twitter regularly, and if it's something that has to be taken to private message, I can temporarily follow you, or you can just hit me with your concept there, and I can give you a response. Okay, we're going to move along. Now, I wanted to talk to you guys more. Obviously, we've been following the whole, well, just us. The whole world has been following the whole coronavirus COVID-19 thing. And so when we do these podcasts, I like to update with any information that I've gleaned, bounce it off the things that you guys have come up with. I think it's very interesting and very important that we realize that China is now definitely on the downside. The new infections are declining daily and are way, way down. And particularly outside of Wuhan, they've gotten the new infections down to almost nothing. I mean, it's good that we know that non-pharmaceutical means do seem to be able to eventually take control. From what I'm seeing, and what everyone, again, much bigger brains than I have, are saying is it's going to move its way through the U.S. It's already moving its way through the U.S. How much impact it's going to have still remains to be seen, because we have to remember, like about 85% of the cases are generally mild, and it's going to be people getting sick and then getting better, just like a bad cold or the flu. Now, there are the elderly, anybody, in their 70s or 80s or beyond. Your immune systems generally don't function as well then. It's a real serious issue for them. Anyone with existing breathing conditions, heart conditions, have to be really super careful. But outside of that, and I don't mean to poo-poo this way as being not dangerous, because it is very dangerous. Outside of that, I think most of us are going to be okay. We're good chance we might get sick for a while. A lot of people are apparently getting the virus and not even showing any real symptoms. So some of us won't even get sick with it. But it's something to be aware of, and it's something that the best thing we can do is just what's being recommended all over the place is washing your hands for the most part. Washing your hands, being conscious about it's like me. I have bad habits of going to my nose like this. I'm constantly rubbing the outside of my nose. You think I snorted coke with the way my nose always itches, or going to my eyes. The reason you see me doing it though is because I've just washed my hands. Whenever I come in, because the virus itself infecting me doesn't scare me, only because I have no reason to believe that it would be all that big an issue for me. I don't have any breathing issues. I don't have any allergies, nothing along those lines. But my wife does. And of course, my daughter is multiply disabled. We don't want it anywhere near her. So every time I leave, I wash my hands before I go. And the first thing I do as soon as I get back in the house is scrub my hands again, because I don't want to carry it anywhere. So I know we'll talk about COVID-19, and then they're like, you asshole, you're doing it, and now you're rubbing your eye. Well, yes, but it's because I feel confident doing that only because my hands were just washed. But yes, I did. And Brian brings this up. Have you seen the video of that lady who said, don't touch your face and stuff, then licked her finger? Yes, she was out in public, and I don't remember who it was, Brian, but she was making a speech in regards to COVID-19 and dealing with the spread. And that's what she's saying, okay, washing your hands, whatever you do, don't touch your face. And then she goes to turn the page on her notes and licks her finger first before she turns. Yeah. It's sometimes the things that happen in real life on the internet, even those of us who are on the internet trying to create stupidity, can't be that stupid. Slightly more infectious flu. Yeah, to me, and this is just my opinion, Executor says slightly more infectious flu. I had said it before. If on the scale of illness, of viruses, you're going to call the flu a 5, I would call the coronavirus a 6, 6.5. That's what it seems to me. And again, when I say that, I'm not trying to dismiss it whatsoever. I'm just trying to look at it honestly where it is, rather than, because for the most part, it works much better for clicks if you can tell horror stories about it than if you tell the realities about it. Licksbox says, take a goddamn bath, you filthy piece of shit human. And Jeff says, I already washed my hands. Well, and when I think, I like to think we all do, but when there's a known issue like this spreading, I like to think that we're even more conscious of it. Coronavirus is confirmed. Green screen, Smokey Loki says. Chrome says the numbers in China definitely look fake at this point. They actually have quotas at this point for each region. If the local officials don't lower the reported cases, the CCP will punish them. Could be, Chrome. I don't think we've ever gotten accurate numbers out of China. I don't think we did right from the start. No reason to believe that we would. I do, however, believe that things are ebbing over there. And just from the little pieces of information that do leak out from China, which we've been getting right from the start, they kind of tend to back that up too. So again, I don't think the numbers themselves are accurate, but I do think the overall idea that the virus is starting on the downside there is true. Firewall Dragon says the coronavirus is just another reason to use protection. AIDS doesn't help the situation. Well, yeah. I mean, you're 100% right. Well, to use protection throughout. you want to be protected from everything and every element of your body, because it's all transmitted by droplets, not airborne, as some people still tend to believe. So the more you can protect yourself, even if it's a full body condom, whatever you need, the better off you are. Like Swanks Gaming says, oh, okay, we're talking about, typically I don't read these during a podcast, but just he's discussing something that goes on here outside of the podcast from the channel. Since you finished it, we play a Demon Slayer Dungeons and Dragon games that takes place in an alternate universe. We have 8 episodes of silliness. My son, Braxton, is very big into Dungeons and Dragons. He does a lot of dungeon mastering. But again, the podcast, we say more on the topics of what we're on. But yes, he's referring back to an anime we watched together over at our Patreon called Demon Slayer that is just fantastic. Anybody listening, I can't recommend it enough. Whether you're into anime or not, it's just really great storytelling. Sir Chip says China is herding people into poorly constructed hospices without medication. Yeah, didn't Sir Chip, wasn't there a collapse of one of those buildings? I think, if I'm not mistaken, a few people died in China because one of these hastily constructed health maintenance facilities collapsed. Yeah, it's not. Oh, no. Electronics Gaming, no need to apologize whatsoever. It's very confusing for those of you who are listening on the podcast. It's confusing for our gang here just because we live stream all the time at the channel, so it's not always completely readily apparent when the live streams are for the podcast. What I will do is, if the podcast starts doing better, right now we're in the infant stages of it. If the podcast does better and has a big following, then we'll move the podcast. It'll always be recorded at a live stream, but I'll move them to another server and tell you all how to get there. Yeah, one did collapse. Thomas the Terminator says that's sad. That's scary. That's so many things went on over there, and they're building hospitals in like 5 and 6 days, and then we're getting little bits and pieces of video clips and pictures of the actual support structures in those hospitals coming apart, and sometimes it seems like they were making a bad thing worse. Henderflick says being gay is something that the other politicians were insulting Pete about and saying he can't be president because of it. He has what it takes to be president. The politicians are childish. Grow up. Yeah, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I like to think there's enough of the nation. We've come far enough that being gay wouldn't prevent you from becoming president. Would it lose him some votes? Yeah, sure. But same way that being a Mormon lost Romney a bunch of votes, and it wasn't that many years ago that no one would ever have believed that we would elect a black man as president, and Obama proved that wrong. So we're getting there slowly, but we're getting there. I mean, the last thing I'm worried about when deciding who to cast my vote for is the color of someone's skin, their sexual orientation, anything along those lines, because man, it's too big a call you're making at that point to base it on something as superfluous and silly as those things. Joe Chronic says, unlike SARS, independent studies that are not pre-warned have gathered they're correct with empty hospitals for the first time, etc., except for Wuhan, where it's still not good at all and seems to be calming. Yeah, okay. I didn't catch what you were saying at first. Yeah, that's what seems to be the case is outside of the epicenter in China, things have really calmed down. And obviously the virus is moving here through the States. And don't get too swept up too. Remember, guys, when they talk about the death rate and the death percentage, that's because not as many people are being tested here in America. And despite what people want you to believe, because again, it's more ways to get clicks and more ways to start panic, it's not because anybody in American government doesn't care. It's that we're understanding more about the virus, and that, again, 85% of people are going to get a mild version, so it's not necessary to test everyone. Because there are a lot of instances where if you have it, you still have to do the exact same thing prior to when you didn't know you have it, which is making sure you wash your hands, not, anything that can deter the spread of the droplets. But most people are going to get sick for a while. They'll be encouraged to stay home from work, stay home from school, and then they're going to get better. So why spend the time, money, and effort to test them if they're exhibiting symptoms that are going to just basically go away? Let's see. Support Gaming 2020 says this won't happen. But imagine on April 1st, the government will come out and say the coronavirus was all a hoax. I would be one of the only people laughing because it would have been such a brilliant hoax. HD says, do you think coronavirus will turn as bad as the plague in the 19th century? No, nothing along those lines. Nothing at all. Again, the vast majority of people who get it are going to get sick for a while and get better. The vast majority. And that was not true with the Black Plague. Chrome says, so what do you think about Italy's decision to put 15 regions under quarantine, including Venice and Milan? I think it's an abundance of caution. Not being there, it's hard to say exactly what I feel because I don't know exactly how those cities are structured and everything. But yeah, it seems like I guess that's the best way to put it, an abundance of caution. But I'm not going to throw stones and say any government is wrong for having done it. It just seems that they're very cautious. Zombie Wolf says, well, it has a 6% death rate. And this is what I was going to just leading to. That number is quite possibly and quite obviously wrong because, again, what we're learning is a huge number of people will get it and don't even know that they have it. And what I was alluding to with talking about how they're not testing everybody, if you're not tested, you are not a member of those statistics. So in other words, if now we've come to know what we're up against somewhat with the virus, if you're not feeling well, you go to your doctor and they think you may have it, but they don't test you because you got the mild case, then you don't get entered into the statistics of people who had it and beat it. So the number of deaths is going to be skewed from a percentage factor. And all those numbers are also very skewed by the initial outbreak in China when they didn't know what the hell was going on and it was taking people down left and right, and the people in China were not getting medical care because they overwhelmed the medical facilities immediately. That percentage that took place there, hopefully, is not going to be mirrored anywhere else in the world where now people are ready for it. Governments are ready for it, and there are plans in place to take care of it. So the 6% number really doesn't mean anything. It genuinely doesn't, because all we know is the number is actually lower than that. We don't know how much lower because we don't know how many people have been infected with it and didn't even show symptoms. Arthur says, also people have it and haven't been cured or died. Right, exactly, Arthur. And again, they're discovering that a lot of people are getting it and not even showing any real symptoms. So there's no way to have an accurate percentage of its death rate because we will never know exactly how many people were infected. That's the thing with a more deadly disease, if you have a disease like Ebola, if you get it, you're sick, you need treatment. Those numbers are going to be pretty concrete. With coronavirus, you can get it, not even realize you have it, and go about your daily activities. You can get it, think it's just the flu or a bad cold, go about your daily activities. So you'll never have a real number as far as mortality percentage. COVID-19 sounds like a drug that Illuminati lizard people would do to enter the Matrix. Kind of does, Tsunami. It kind of sounds trippy. Let's see. Joe Chronic says South Korea only have the second most cases out of China because they test people for fun. It'll be a similar number in multiple countries if they had the same policy. Yeah, again, we'll never, because of the nature of the virus, we'll never have good solid percentages as far as mortality. It'll always be an approximation, but you can pretty much guarantee that whatever that percentage of fatalities is, the real number is substantially lower. Firewall Dragon says you should make a video only talking about the coronavirus just to consolidate all the facts in one place. I thought about that, Dragon. The thing is, even now, though, now we're having this conversation. Of course, this video that we're doing here will go up to the channel. But to be perfectly honest, in a few days, this will be outdated because we'll have even more information. We'll know more about it. So that's why I've devoted time in each of these streams to talking about it, because things change so quickly. So making a video with all that we know right now, a bunch of people have done it and it's helpful. But to be honest with you, again, in a week, it's not going to mean much because there will be so much more new information. Lightsby says Bernie can't do math. I would agree with you on that. Or he doesn't want us to do math. Munchie Time says, I feel like the media is pushing the virus to just invoke fear out of people to help pharmaceutical companies. All it is an enhanced seasonal flu. Yeah, but it's you're not wrong much of the time. I think that word enhanced is very important, but I also do agree that yes, I think media they've got the perfect angle here because it's something they can sensationalize. It's something that they can come, whenever there's something negative about the coronavirus, whenever there's something big, they can run news with it. And when they get cornered, say, listen, why are you not also explaining to people that the vast majority of them are going to be fine? Excuse me. Or when you give that percentage, because they like that, the big scary number, where 14% of people over 80 have died from it, that's fine because that's all fact. But why don't you also tell them that 85% of people are going to get a mild version? And their response is always basically, well, we're just trying to make sure that everyone is prepared. And this is the best way to do it. No, it's the best way to get clicks. And that's news media nowadays. It's all about the clicks. Willie Play says, I kind of want to get corona because then the media will paint me as a living bioweapon, and that's badass. And it's funny because we see people from both sides of the political spectrum so disgusted with how the media conducts itself anymore. I don't think, in America anyway, a large percentage of the media here will ever be fully respected again. I have, and again, as I started to say, I have no sympathy for them because they brought it on themselves. That was where my education was in journalism, and journalistic integrity is just gone. Henderflick says, I don't know why coronavirus is so talked about when there are bigger killers in the world like Ebola, cancer, and AIDS, HIV. Like, come on. Well, I mean, and right now, the bigger killer is the flu itself. But it's because it's new, it's scary, and the way it sprang up in China with so many people dying and everything, it got everybody afraid. And again, for media companies, it's good business to keep that fear stoked. It really is. Yeah. Abe says, R.I.P. Corona beer. Yeah, it is funny that there were a number of people that related the Corona beer to the coronavirus. I don't know if that's funny or sad, but Jacob Jameson says, the funny thing about calling it the coronavirus is that corona is just the shape of the virus. And you know what else is a coronavirus? The common cold and SARS. Absolutely right, Jacob. Absolutely right. That's what I don't think we talked about it this particular time, but yes, coronavirus itself is nothing new. This strain of it is, but as Jacob mentioned, it's just the common cold is also a coronavirus. And again, you won't see much of that in the media or anything because that's not good for clicks. What's good for clicks is when you can get hyperinflated numbers of those who have died and things along those lines. But yeah, the cold is a coronavirus. This is just a new strain. Hopefully, pharmaceutical companies can come up with an effective vaccine and eliminate it. I believe, at the very least, they will come up with drugs that will mitigate the damage that the virus does. I really believe that. I really believe that. Firewall Dragon says, what disgusts me are the Dems trying to politicize the coronavirus and use it against Trump. That's the unfortunate reality we live in now. It was just like that as soon as the virus became known, Trump was evil because he made cuts at the CDC, and I've gotten to where you can't even have conversations online anymore because people are they're gone. They're off the deep end, and it's all about their emotions rather than, and who they hate, whether they hate Trump or they hate Sanders or whoever. It's all about that, not the facts of the issue. And I said, okay, so he cut at the CDC. Has that affected America's response in any way? Were those cuts at the CDC warranted? There's lots of government agencies that have bloat, and I'd like to see all of that bloat cut out because we pay for it. So do we know that it is actually having an effect? And of course nobody knew. You don't have any way of knowing if it had anything to do with it. As near as I can tell, no. As when a virus came up, Congress got together. They passed an $8.3 billion package for readiness, which we would have needed regardless of how well the CDC had been funded prior, or how well it was staffed, or how big the staffing was. So I don't see where it made a difference. But as we've talked about, in our current climate, everything has to be political. We need to find a way to spin it so that somebody is evil, and that's one side always wants to get at the other, and that's more important to them than anything else. Joshua says, excuse me, if they have, hold on, if they can make vaccines for colds, can't they obtain a more enhanced version for a vaccine? Since a vaccine is a weakened version of a virus itself, I'm not sure. I guess it all depends. And of course, Joshua, I'm far from a scientist. I guess it all depends on the individual makeup. But when you think about it, there is no cure for the cold. We just have drugs that will help mitigate the symptoms. And so that's what I'm saying with COVID-19. You hope they can come up with a vaccine that will just eliminate it. But at the very least, let's just hope they can come up with medicines that make it more palatable, make it less deadly. Let's see. Jacob says, I work in a nursing home, and we just had a 45-minute briefing on Corona-19. In my work, we need to be careful because these people are fragile. 100%, Jacob. Exact same thing. My wife retired from an assisted living center, but she doesn't understand the concept of retirement. I bust her balls about that all the time because she loved working there. So she still goes in. She's still on the books. She's still up there working constantly. Whenever they're short-staffed somebody, hell, half the time I think she'd go in there for free. But yes, so but it's the exact same situation. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And yeah, I'll give New York credit for that. They have been very good about making sure that those types of facilities have all the latest information, all the latest details, and they worked with them well. I'm not a big fan of New York State. I only live here because my grandkids are here. I would have moved by now, but I'll give credit where it's due. So far, they've done a good job with this. TJ says, only elderly and children need to be concerned. CDC in my state has confirmed zero cases, and as long as no one with it comes here, mainly from China. Yeah, TJ, it's just a matter of, well, now the only thing is you do have it in America, so even in your state, American citizens are carrying it now too, and you never know. Somebody could be one of those people that has the virus but no symptoms. They wipe their nose, wipe their mouth, then put their hand on a railing that you come by and put your hand on that railing, and then it's in your state. But again, the vast majority of people, it's going to be a rather mild thing. And it seems to be with this one, surprisingly enough, it's the elderly. Children, it hasn't really, the last I saw the numbers now, unless something has changed, children haven't had a lot of effect from COVID. It's just been the elderly, which is surprising because typically that's always the case. It's always the elderly and the very young, but it hasn't been yet. Okay, now we've got a few minutes left, and what I wanted to do today, I'm going to, from here on out, I'm going to be looking at comments. You guys can talk about absolutely anything you want. Well, I'll let you guys take direction of the conversation. If this goes well, if this goes bizarre, if this goes off the rails, I'll probably still be doing that a lot because I like a little tour off the rails, a little tour outside the box, way the hell outside the box every once in a while. So we can continue on with stuff that we've covered, but aside from that, I'm turning this over to you now. And of course, Big Green says, first topic outside the box, anime titties. All I can say as far as anime titties go, and for those of you listening on the podcast who don't know, our crew here at the YouTube channel where we record these is a very big anime crowd. And yeah, anime titties I support 100%. I'd like to support them even more if you know what I'm saying. Jacob says, children are practically invincible to this new corona because they so frequently have the common cold. That would make sense. I know when I looked at the numbers, Jacob, I was actually shocked how it was just not affecting children. That would make sense. Arthur says you need to watch interspecies reviewers. Yeah, I've heard a few things about that. I've heard a few things about that. I have not seen any of it myself, but yeah, it's been talked about a lot. Braxton, my son, for those on the podcast, my son Braxton watches it. Firewall Dragon says The Rock for president in 2024. Oh, and you know, if The Rock runs for president at any point, the posters, all the publicity has to be the eyebrow raise. I can't do it. Gotta be the eyebrow raise. And for those of you listening on the podcast, you just missed a really bad eyebrow raise. A really badass eyebrow raise. Now, I was probably right the first time when I misspoke. So we have confirmation. Spaz Kid watches hentai. Ooh. Tsunami says, I keep calling it contravirus. I hope it's not a tumor. It's not a tumor. How many of you remember that? Then those listening on the podcast, how many people, let's see who can be the first one to mention it here, because the live stream that we're doing is on a little bit of a delay. Who knows where that's from? It's not a tumor. What movie is that from? And who said it? Munchie Time says, still waiting for that porn calculator. There it is. Everybody's got it. Tsunami, Renegade, Glen Acres, Kindergarten Cop. And Mazmaker, Big Green. I will say this. Our gang here, our regular gang here in the live streams, I'm very impressed. Because I'm 58 years old. I know it's Kindergarten Cop because I'm an old fart. And when Kindergarten Cop came out, I was probably, I was already in my 30s probably, or late 20s. But a lot of our gang here is substantially younger than that. And yet somehow you guys, your pop culture knowledge is beyond compare. And that impresses me because that's the important stuff. That's what I want people to know about is pop culture. Who cares about this real world shit? Chrome says, honestly, it's hard to tell you have eyebrows at times. They're the same color and look as the dark bags under your eyes. Wow, that sounds, let me say, I'm looking at myself in the, you think? I can see my eyebrows, Chrome. Yeah, I guess they don't really stand out there a lot. But yeah, those sunken, what do we call that underneath my eyes there? That sunken nature, that's going to come in handy. The older I get, the creepier that's going to be. I got to figure a way to leverage that creepy look. Well, I think I can think of ways. Smokey Loki says, Nico Robin and Sarah Victoria in skin-tight bikinis jumping up and down as Curtis is awarded a lifetime supply of baseball tickets and Disney World pizza. And for those of you who don't know, whether here at the stream or at the podcast, Smokey Loki knows me well because Nico Robin is a character from One Piece. Sarah Victoria is a character from Hellsing. And I am totally madly in love with both of them. Even though they would probably both kill me, I would go out happily. But I'm a baseball fanatic. Just joined an over 55 baseball league. Can't wait to get it started. Disney World fanatic. And I will say it again. And I don't care how many times I put them over. The greatest pizza in the world is in Disney World. Go into Epcot at Disney World. Go to the Italy section and walk straight to the back of the Italy section. In the back, you will see a pizza place. Go in there. Eat pizza. Lots of it. Lots of it. I ate an entire large pizza there once, and I am proud of it. Does it make me a glutton? Does it make me a pig? Does it make me socially disgusting? Yes. Don't care. Firehall Dragon says Dutch Mantel has Zeb Coulter for president. That was a pretty funny angle they did. I knew Dutch Mantel, wow, back in the late 70s, early 80s when I first broke in. Let's see. Remember when I told you I would kill you last? I lied. Yeah, I love that one, Moss. That's where he's hanging. That's where Arnold. Which movie was that? That's where he's holding the dude over the cliff by the foot, right? I don't remember which. It was the one. I can't think of the name of it. It's the one where, wow, that happens in all of them, where the military crew is coming after him in his house up on top there with his daughter. I don't remember the name of it, but I remember that scene. Let's see. Matthew Bell says you should check out Kengan Ashura. It's on Netflix. Huh, never heard of that one. Matthew, I was just on Netflix last night too, looking around for new things. I didn't even see that one. Commando, thank you. Yes, that's the name of the Schwarzenegger movie. From Commando. Yes, I lied. He did that. Come on. Arnold, especially early on in his career, maybe not the greatest actor in the history of the world, but he could deliver those taglines pretty well. I have to admit, you got to give him that. Uh, let's see. God damn it, Susan TKD says, "God damn it, Susan! I just got an interruption on YouTube, and Susan's trying to suck me up." Oh my! Whenever you guys on the podcast hear us harping about Susan, that would be Susan Wojcicki, who is the CEO of YouTube. Mossmaker says, "Fuck you, best actor that ever walked the planet." Oh, that's tough, Chrome. Quick question: what's more humiliating, Junior with pregnant Arnold, or the Tooth Fairy with The Rock? That was bad. Or Tooth Fairy 2 with Larry the Cable Guy. Oh, wait, don't you have to throw in too, though? If it's going to be most humiliating, don't you have to throw in the original Hulk Hogan movie there? You guys will know again. Now, here's where I can count on you guys. Even though a lot of you probably weren't even born yet, you'll know that the first Hulk Hogan movie where the guy made Dookie. Oh, you got to throw that one in there too, Chrome. Where he had Zeus. Of those, I don't know how you pick one as being more humiliating. As much as I like Larry the Cable Guy, though, if I had to pick, it'd probably be that one. That was really rough. I got through about 5 minutes of that. Oh, Firewall Dragon says D'Lo Brown for president. He'll paralyze the competition. Oh, for those who don't know, D'Lo Brown is a wrestler who was involved in an incident where he dropped another wrestler on his head and sat him in a wheelchair. Yeah, youch. Suburban Commando. No, I don't think that was it. Mr. Nanny. No, I don't think it was that one either, Jorgen. Was it Suburban Commando, Mousemaker? I can't remember. The very first Hulk Hogan movie. Maybe it was Suburban Commando. I can't remember the name. It was so horrifically bad. No, I think Mr. Nanny was later, guys. I think Mr. Nanny was later. Well, thanks, Trian. I appreciate that. Now you guys got me wondering. Now we're going to have to, when this stream is over, I'm going to have to look that up. Because I remember the one you're talking about, that Mr. Nanny Warrior was in the tutu. I think, Tuto. He was in the Tuto, because Tutos are a thing apparently now. But this was another one. It might No Holds Barred. Mozmaker's got it. That was it. Yes, it was No Holds Barred. That's got to be up there. If you guys have never seen No Holds Barred, and you really want to torture yourself a little bit, and I mean, who doesn't? You gotta watch that movie at some point, and then you need to make the commitment to sit all the way through it. That's if there's one horrible thing I can do for all of you, is to ask you to sit through the entirety of that movie. Oh, I'm the party pooper. Oh no, that was the Hogan movie. I'm the party pooper. Yeah. Azar, are you optimistic about the future? That's interesting. Yes. And when I talk about the future, not even mine so much. I mean, I don't think I'm looking at death tomorrow, but I'm old enough that I've had a good run. But when I think about for my my kids and my grandkids, yes, I am. That's why I am so much set against socialism creeping into our society. Let's see. Oh, Firewall Dragon says, did you know that Owen Hart ran for president? He dropped out very quickly. Oh, the jokes are getting brutal. And for those of you who don't know, Owen Hart, again, is a wrestler who fell to his death while doing an entrance on a zip line. It was, yeah. Joshua Ware says all the way through it. Yeah, Joshua, if you can sit through the entirety of that movie, No Holds Barred, that's Ghost Pepper Challenge, anything like that pales in comparison. If you can sit there and actually focus and watch that entire movie, you are a legend. Colton Watkins says randomly, I am the mighty pickle. If you're going to be a pickle, you might as well be a mighty one. That's all I'm saying. Joseph could do it. I went to the theater to see it when it came out. I still remember back when they had Amsterdam, New York as a neighboring community for me, back when they had theaters there. And I couldn't do it. I walked out. I couldn't. I just couldn't do it anymore. And Munchie Time likes chocolate milk. I like chocolate milk too, but you know what? I like the when Braxton, Spaz Kid, my son, was little, we called it the bunny milk. The Nesquik. The Nesquik bottles with the bunny on them, that's quality chocolate milk. Now I want some. That's quality chocolate milk right there. Yeah. Mozmaker says, still want to know why the fuck they decided to put Zeus in the ring afterwards. Yeah, it was, I can't remember that actor's name. Big African-American guy, huge guy, was in that No Holds Barred movie as the character Zeus. And then what Maz is alluding to is after the movie came out, they decided it'd be a good idea to work him into the actual wrestling angles. And yeah, it wasn't a good idea. Remember, he would walk in and just, and that was his one move, bringing both fists down onto the shoulders or something. Chrome says it has an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes, No Holds Barred, she's talking about. And that, to be perfectly honest with you, Chrome, that's being generous. It being in double digits should be a crime. Rotten Tomatoes, you can make a legitimate case that their website should be shut down for allowing that to go to double digits. I'll show you, Dickless, Slick says. Dude went to the Giant Gonzalez School of Pro Wrestling. Yes, he did, Mozmaker. That was another horrible, horrible gimmick. Oh, gosh. Chrome says 4.4 on IMDb and 31% on Metacritic. What the hell? 31% and 4.4? Has to be Chrome. Has to be a lot of Hulk Hogan nerds that didn't watch the movie. Gotta be. Because that is, that's, if we could here at the live stream and podcast, if I was allowed to assign homework, that would be you guys' homework assignment. Go watch No Holds Barred and sit through the whole goddamn thing. And then the next time we have a stream, have a podcast, come back in and tell me what you thought. And don't come to my house and like shoot out my porch light or something. Although I would Dookie, yeah, Daniel. Daniel Kelly says Dookie. Although I would clearly deserve it. Callie 115 says, how's the stores in your city? The stores in my area are running low on toiletries, water, and cleaning products. We're pretty okay right now. The only thing you cannot get anywhere around is the hand sanitizer. You can get the soaps, the soap dispensers, but the standalone hand sanitizer you can't get. But other than that, we're doing okay. Gamma Spectre says, okay, I'll watch it tonight. Gamma, wait do you see? You're not going to believe it. It's just so horrifically bad. It's so bad. Firewall Dragon says Russo versus Bernie in a nomination on a pole match. Yes, the first one to climb the pole and get the nomination off the top. And Vince Russo was, well, he's a story unto itself. Oh, Mozmaker says JR's face is more mobile than Zeus. I know. For those who don't know, the man he's talking about, JR, is an announcer in pro wrestling, and he has Bell's palsy. See, I told you, I warned everybody, when I turned this loose, when I turned it over to the gang here at the stream, things were going to take a distinct turn. Chrome says, well, Curtis, you know what my next Patreon message will be to you too. Going to try and sit through it. I'll be interested to see if you guys can watch it all. Now, you have to be honest. What I mean is sit there and actually watch the movie. It's easy to turn it on, on your TV, on your portable device or whatever, and go about your business and do other things. But sit there and try and actually stay focused on watching the screen. I couldn't. And again, I paid money to go into a theater and see it, and I walked my ass out. There was just, oh my God, it was so bad. All right, well, that's about it for today's live stream / podcast. Guys, thank you so much for being in here with us today. This has been a lot of fun. I'll do this more often. We'll have entire podcasts. We've had one, and we'll have entire podcasts where I leave things up to you. We can discuss whatever you want. But this was a lot of fun today. I like doing this at the end. And that is everyone's homework assignment. See if you can watch No Holds Barred, the original Hulk Hogan movie, and actually get all the way through it. To those of you listening on the podcast, as always, if you want to be part of these recordings, it's at our YouTube channel, Just search Spaz Boys Comedy on YouTube. You'll find us. Feel free to come in here, have a good time with us. A lot of the channel is based on anime. If that's not your thing, that's completely understandable. But hopefully Susan will send you notifications when we stream like she's supposed to, and you can come join us in the streams. But to the regular crew, I'll see you during the week because we stream all week long. To those listening on the podcast, thanks for listening in. Hopefully you weren't too damaged by the final 20 minutes or so of the podcast. But yeah, this is how we roll at Spaz Boys Comedy. I don't know what level of pride. I'm going to say it with absolute pride. This is how we roll at Spaz Boys Comedy. I will talk to all you guys really, really soon. Thanks again. See you later.